Here we go.
Srode in Norway?
Just call me Fro. It's okay. It's one of those names that is impossible to say.
I bet you can say it.
Yeah.
I can say it because I'm Norwegian.
Can you please say it, and we'll try our best?
Okay, I will say it. Srode.
Srode. Close?
Yeah, but all people, American people call me Fro, so it's okay. Hi, Jamie. Hi, Claire.
Hi, how are you?
Hi. What did you want to talk about today?
I'm okay. Well, I want to talk about how being ambivalent led me to God in a strange way.
Okay.
Really?
Yes. I don't know if any of you have heard anything about counterfactual history.
About
What?
counterfactual history?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard some...
Counterfactual history.
I've heard some history that I thought was counter to fact, but... history.
But more or less, it is a theory where people ask you, what if? What if Hitler won the war? What if
okay.
Stalin? Yeah. And that started my long journey into religion, actually, because as someone that is ambivalent and is really interested in counterfactual history, I see everything I do as a consequence. Like everything I do has a consequence. And that also has led me into being ambivalent. Like, if you look at the definition of ambivalent, it says more or less that you have mixed feelings about something, or you're unable to choose between two opposing, usually opposing things. So, for example, I like to use the example of the soda in the refrigerator because it's really one of the most simple examples.
Can I just jump in here really quickly for a slight question? So you gave an example of what a counterfactual history might be, specifically what if Hitler had won the war. And then you talked about how counterfactual history brought you into religion. Did you mean that specific example, or...
Oh, no.
Okay.
I mean, more in a general term, it led me into religion.
So I was going to say, interesting. Sorry. So continue. You said there's an example you like to use involving a soda in a fridge.
Yes. If I say there's soda in the fridge, you have, for me, three clear choices. You can trust me and think there's a soda in the fridge. You can go and check if there's a soda in the fridge. And you can not care if there's a soda in the fridge. That's maybe there's a lot of other choices, but at least you have a choice of action when I tell you there's a soda in the fridge.
Right.
And as a person that asks myself, what will happen if I don't trust this person? What will happen? Can I be, for example, can I trip over and fall if I go to the fridge and check? Will there be another twist of history if I do something completely else? So it's from very, very mundane things to very complicated things, to like, where should I live? Where should I marry this girl or a man? Or it's like it is something that has steered me in many directions because I'm afraid of the consequences, or I am afraid of what history will come after my choice. I will always go, what if?
Okay. I think that's actually probably an interesting and helpful thing. I have particular passion for civic engagement. Additionally, if you live in the United States right now, please already have voted. Be voting right now. Actually, don't be voting right now. Watch this and then vote either after or before it. Now that's selfish. Right. Vote. If you have to miss our live show to vote, do that. Make a plan to vote. Get a friend to vote. Show your kids how voting works, but don't register them to vote because that's illegal. In any case, recognizing that the actions that we take and the things that we do could be significant in the grander scheme of things, I think is a good motivator to behave ethically and, you know, recognize how your actions affect others, which I think is the basis for forming a moral system. My question is, how does that get you to believing that a God exists?
Well, because of there being at all possibility of the fridge and the soda. Let's say God is the soda. I'm so obsessed by the what if God exists that it got me to thinking the consequences of him not existing. Also, of course, being somewhat ambivalent, it got me to thinking between the really good things that happened in my life, between the really bad things that have happened in my life. And I took those two things together, and I looked at everything that has been good and has led me to do all the right decisions in my ambivalent life, to be somewhat maybe a voice or a feeling or a gut. Because if you don't do a choice, that's also a choice, funny enough.
Yeah.
So not doing anything is actually not being ambivalent. Actually, to a certain point, you have to do something.
Yeah, inaction is still a decision.
Right. And doing that has led me to the conclusion that there is a God, because I don't see any other reason for the question to be there. Like, for example,
which question is that?
You could use to say, is there a God?
So wait, if I'm hearing you correctly, the fact that there is a question that is interesting is one of, or the thing that persuades you that the answer to that question is yes.
Well, not only that, but
okay.
Because you could use that example for a unicorn. You could ask what is the consequences for not believing in a unicorn. But if you look through the God, their God claim in through the Bible and through the Quran and through other holy scriptures, there's always a bigger consequence of not believing in God than not believing in a unicorn.
Okay, so can I give you an example of something that I might believe and ask you to evaluate how rational my conclusion is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It is almost the end of the month, and rent is due. And I'm concerned about this because at the present moment, I don't make a lot of money, and I don't have consistent work. And I also don't have a personal Patreon, so I can't even ask for money. But the point being, if I believe that I, for example, won the $1.5 billion lottery that someone in South Carolina won, then I will not be evicted. I don't have to worry about my bills. A huge aspect of my life, basically, until I die, is covered one way or another, even if I don't do the responsible thing of getting blind trust. The consequences of my not having $1 billion in the bank would be that I would have to work really hard the rest of my life. be very careful and conservative in my personal finances, plan ahead, work for retirement, save money, invest wisely, and even then, it might take me a very, very long time before I'm able to retire. Those are dire consequences. Should I, starting right now, believe that I have $1 billion in the bank and therefore live my life as though I do not need to work and earn money?
No, and that is
so
one of the
fact
things
that hold on, let me read the conclusion. So the fact that it would be better if something is true in my life does not mean that it is true.
Right.
If there were a God that were benevolent, that we could finally get in touch with, that could solve all of our problems, that would be better than having to do it the hard way of solving people's problems, of human beings solving human beings' problems. But I don't think that that's sufficient reason to believe that it's true.
Yeah. But don't you think it comes down to a way to test it? Because I think ambivalent and being ambivalent is the way to test God.
How so?
I think it's because how can I explain it? I will try to make it as simple as humanly possible. And also I'm Norwegian, so sorry for my English.
Oh, it's fine. Oh, it's very good. It's very good.
Your English is amazing.
Yeah, your English is much better than my any other language. So you're fine.
But I will try to explain it. Have you ever seen Sliding Doors, the movie?
Yeah.
The movie?
The movie?
Yeah.
No.
No. I was going to say I've seen
sliding
Doors.
door, yes, but not the movie.
Oh, Sliding Doors.
It must be very moving. Sorry.
With Gwyneth Paltrow, where she misses the train.
Sounds like a fantastic movie already.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah. and we follow her in two timetables. What happens to her when she misses the train and when she doesn't miss the train? We follow her through two different timelines.
Okay.
Do you think things you did yesterday have consequences for today?
Yes.
Like mundane small things.
Of course.
Yes, I think it's very wise to make provision for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is kind of my point. If you didn't do that, if you didn't have any consequences, if you didn't feel there was any consequences for your life, you would probably do different actions. And I think the thing that you're doing is kind of proving God, because if you wouldn't care about your actions or the consequences of your actions, you would do it another way.
I don't think that gets you to, sorry for jumping in here, I don't think that gets you quite there. So I believe there are incredible series of things that are, that result from your actions, that are consequences of your actions. Beliefs drive decisions. I think the consequence of believing things without good reasons, the consequences of that can be dire. I've made the decision to examine this question as earnestly and critically as I can to come to what I think is the most reasonable belief. If I believed there was a God, I would live my life differently. So let me ask a question to see if I can get to a conclusion you might be going. When you're saying, it seems as though you're implying that it is better to live your life as if there is a God than not, right? Is this like an appeal to afterlife, or life is better while you're here if you believe? What are we going for here?
Well, I think the consequences. I think if we look, and I watched your program, and I've been thinking a lot of which hell am I most scared about. It's a good question that I like that you asked theists about, and I don't really have a good answer for that. As a somewhat ambivalent person, I think there's parts of every hell story that is true. I don't really think there's a God, Christian-wise or Hindu-wise, or I don't believe in religion, so saying. But I believe in a God. And I think God is proving to exist because I see that all the consequences that we do as human beings on Earth has a consequence. And I do think that if there was no God, there would be no consequences to what we did.
So when you say consequences, sorry, last question just to clarify.
Sure.
When you say consequences, do you mean specifically negative ones, or do you just mean that when I do something, there is a result?
I'm not so concerned about positive consequences now.
Okay,
So
but like without
consequences.
God, there wouldn't be actions taken by humans that affect the world?
Right.
Okay. Claire, I think you interrupted you.
So
twice.
I've got a couple of questions that don't require long answers, but there's a couple of things. So consequences, I assume you're talking about behavioral consequences, because the consequence of me letting go of this is that it'll fall. And does that prove God? A. And the other one is, there's the scary lightning. Woo. Yes. Consequences,
Yeah.
right. It's a signal.
What did we do?
What did we do? God is not happy with us. Something.
We forgot his title.
Right, yeah. The other thing is, have you thought about the fact that we're social animals and we choose to do things because it would be very hard for us not to choose to do them. I could not choose to be completely asocial and survive. If you drop me in the middle of nowhere with no clothes, no food, no nothing, I wouldn't last very long. Everything around me was brought to me by the fact that I'm a human and we're social animals. Somebody built this building. Somebody made this stupid hat. Jamie here
That is an excellent hat.
Okay, well, that's fine. It's blue. It's sparkly.
Yeah, it is an excellent hat. I love your hat.
Thank you. So, are you taking that into account at all? That we are human beings and we have to consider the consequences because we are social animals? It's evolutionary. We really can't not be social. And if we are not social, then you wind up in jail or dead or something.
Right. I think you're on with something there, and I think that's a good question for someone like me. I really haven't thought about it because I went away from the human thing because I saw that there were so many humans that did different things, that believed in different things. Like you have Mormons, you have Jehovah's Witnesses, you have Hindus, you have so many religions that do different things. And you also have different atheists that does different things with their kind of belief or non-belief, sorry. But I think my argument is this. If I can put a box on it, there's no consequence for not believing in God. I do think there's a consequence for doing things that are bad in your life, and I would like people to think more about what they do to each other. And I think that secularism and religion, for some people, have brought them into thinking about that, or actually also the opposite. Being an atheist, I met many atheists that have better morals than a lot of Christian people. But for me, it comes down to this. If God doesn't exist, I don't know if it really matters what I do today, because there will be no consequences for me tomorrow, because there is no guiding. Can I use that word?
There are consequences on a number of levels. First of all, like I said, you're a social animal, and there are certain things that if you do or don't do them, it's going to impact the society around you. But there's also, you have to live with yourself. And being that we have consciences, we're going to behave most of the time in ways that benefit everyone and ourselves too. Like, I could not feed my dog today and no one would know but me and my dog, but I couldn't do that.
Okay.
I mean, that's monstrous to me. But
concerned there for a second.
Right. No, never, ever.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? You have to live with yourself. And I think that living with yourself, that feeling that we're talking about, isn't God. It's just the programming that's in your brain. Just to give a small example of that, if you change your brain physically a little bit, it can change who you are. So it's not some ethereal something out there. It's all going on up in here, and that translates into how you feel and think and what you do. And there's nothing otherworldly about that. It's just we're just a bag full of chemicals working right.
Do you think there, if we look at history before the Bible was made, can you point at some time in history before we had, for example, the Ten Commandments, that was a morally concerned society?
Yes. So here's the thing. Particularly in Western society, because Christendom has been a large influencing factor throughout Europe, and European imperialism spread that everywhere. So not only do you not have to go back before the Bible to find places not influenced specifically by the Ten Commandments or not influenced by a god, you can just go to a different geographic location. But with China, you can do both. So Confucianism is not dependent on a god, relates in no way to an afterlife or external supernatural punishments. It is merely a set of ethics that dictates the way that it believes people should live to live in a harmonious society. So, yeah.
And if you just look at social animals, I'm sorry, this is my bag, baby.
Yeah.
If you just look at social animals, everything from ants to wolves to naked mole rats, humans, any of the apes that are social, there are rules of a sort. And if you break those rules, you're not going to live very long. It's in there at a hard chemical level. You can't just go against what's in your genes. So yeah, it was there before. We didn't need anyone to tell us that killing was bad. We're social animals, so we know killing is bad because that's part of who we are. If we were jellyfish, we wouldn't care about killing. If we were bears, killing another bear, well, that just means you got into my territory, and that's fair game because I'm not a social animal. We're humans, and so killing is going to be bad. On the other hand, not everybody in the world knows that taking the Lord's name in vain is wrong. What the hell? Where does that come from? And why and why doesn't it say anywhere that rape is bad? In fact, it endorses rape in the Bible. What the hell? God's got some jacked up views of what it means to be good, you know?
Well,
so, yeah, there.
Yeah, I was going to say, the societies that wrote about that specific God idea had some jacked up.
Yes, right.
Sorry.
Can there be a God claim without the books around God?
Lots of people do it.
Can there be a God plane?
Claim.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like,
Claim.
I have lost count of how many people who are spiritual but not religious, and there's a God but I can't define and all that sort of stuff. It happens all the time. Yeah. right?
And the ones that are less spiritual but have the same sort of loosey-goosey approach to reality that isn't dependent on research have some interesting ideas about the moon landing and things like that.
Not necessarily.
Yeah.
I was once one of those spiritual but not religious people, and I never thought that the moon landing was fake. However, I did believe things like everything happens for a reason. I am so sorry, that's bad and wrong. And, stuff like that. And then as you examine it over time, you're like, that's pretty jacked up, because I'm pretty sure being in, say, in a concentration camp, that didn't work out for the best for them,
Yeah.
So.
The reason for that was Nazism.
Yeah, because human failure.
The phrase "everything happens for a reason" has always, even before I really deconverted, it's always seemed strange to me, because to me it just seemed like a statement of fact of like, oh, okay, this pen fell because there was gravity,
physics,
and that was the reason.
The reason almost every time is physics. Yeah.
Maybe it's just I don't have this seeking of like a greater significance given to human actions, because for me the fact that there are other humans has always felt satisfying as far as what I was doing. The fact that I'm feeding this hungry person means that they're full or has been enough without divine whatever. I'm getting a little bit off into the weeds, but does that address some of your ideas about what negative consequences a person might suffer if they take an action?
Yeah, and I kind of wish that I wasn't like that. I wish I could stop questioning what if, because it has brought me a lot of grievance, and it also brought me a lot of sleepless nights where I have been thinking about the consequence for something super minor. And I think I wish I knew how I knew maybe how to let that go, but it is extremely hard when you've done it for 30 plus years.
Well, it's how you're wired up, apparently. So
yeah,
you'll have to find your own way out of that. I've gone to counseling for various and sundry things, and so I don't know. You don't have to live that way. We are wired the way we are wired, but there is some plasticity. I mean, you could look into how that could be changed for you. It sounds like hell to me. I mean, to worry about every little thing that you do and how it could impact other things, seriously, that's it's sort of anxiety and obsessive.
So my question is, how small are the things that you worry about? Like when you go to Subway or whatever, do you worry about which sandwich to order?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let me recommend a show for you. The show is called The Good Place, and the character I think you should watch most closely is...
I love The Good Place.
Yeah,
yes!
Is Chidi. I'm not sure...
He's awesome,
We're going to not have any spoilers, because I get to make that call because I'm the host of the show. But that character and his journey and the things that he realizes, particularly about, in his case, his complete inability to make decisions.
That's his personal hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is super hard for me, and it's also kind of strange that it led me to religion, because I never felt saved in a religious way. I felt saved in a logical way. For me, it's always been what is the most logical step to take. And I feel redeemed, or I feel more easy when people are talking about like heaven, for example, because then I don't have to think about every decision.
It's kind of an easy answer, but I'll tell you what, for me, science and learning is an easy answer. I mean, it takes more effort at the outset, but then there's a point at which you run up against what's known and figure out that there's stuff beyond that, and it will probably get figured out, but it just takes human inquiry and a little bit of science and curiosity. And that, to me, is the most satisfying thing there is. We can't know everything. And being at peace with that, that's science gave me that. I mean, it sounds like I'm talking about religion or something weird, but it is. It's a mindset. It's a mindset where you can just let go of stuff because, hey, we don't know that, but that's cool. I mean, not too long ago, we thought that the Earth was the center of the universe, and all these other silly things that we now know are ridiculous, like the Earth being flat, for God's sakes. And
that one we actually figured out, people figured out a lot sooner because they started navigating.
Oh yeah, clearly.
It's like
but there's still
more than
people
500 years old.
Right, but there's still people who want to cling to the notion that it's flat. And that's,
well,
so
superstitious thinking is on the rise, right?
Yeah.
It's a lack of superstitious. It's a rise in superstitious thinking and a lack of, comprehensive and successful education.
Yeah,
in my mind, if your education has told you a bunch of things but not told you how to think, to the point where you might even not examine the things you're told, it's failed.
Vilification of intellectualism, essentially. It
I don't
feels,
care what test results you got.
Yeah.
Do you know how to think?
Right.
And if not, it's not your fault.
Yeah. Thinking is good. Yeah.
Is that what you think?
I do think that.
And let me tell you why. Reasons.
Reasons. Yeah,
no,
we've covered everything now. We can, and scene. There we go. All right.
Oh, no, it's because what results. So it kind of sounds like you're in a place where you believe there's a God because it helps you deal with, I don't want to say crushing anxieties, but concerns about all of the effects that will result from even your smallest decisions. Have you ever considered imagining the positive potential effects of a small decision? Right. So right now it sounds like you're going and you're trying to decide what sandwich to order, or which sandwich to order.
Yeah.
And
it is kind of a stupid spiral because I think it started with like looking through history and seeing that the courses people have done through history is so enormously big. And I mean, maybe it's really stupid of me to think that I have such a consequence on the world that everything will change if I lose a spoon on my floor. But for me, it has been so enduring into. I think it also goes a little to being somewhat Norwegian and socialist. As a socialist, you learn that you're a part of society. You're a part of the wheel that goes around. You're a part of something bigger. You are important for society to go around. Your tax money helps other people. And growing up in such a society, you almost get a little like you get so afraid of doing mistakes that you almost, I just stopped doing things, and I became so ambivalent about it, and I chose to bring God into it because it was, like you said, a stress relief.
Yeah. So here's what I'm gonna say, and then I think we're probably heading towards the end of this call. I would like to hear from you again in a little bit, particularly because of what I'm gonna say. So it sounds like some of the things that you've said, I'm not a clinical psychologist, but it sounds like a few of the things you've said have been a response to a psychological stressor in your life. And becoming ambivalent about it is definitely a mechanism that human minds can use to deal with something. It's sort of, diet denial. Diet denial, now on sale, 2 for 1. And then having a one-step solution to that sounds a little bit like a way, potentially, of bargaining with yourself and the world so that, okay, well, I may be concerned about this and it may be a real thing, but there is an answer and it's God, so now I also don't have to worry. Because fundamentally, the human mind avoids things that are uncomfortable, like being concerned about something. and seeks things that are comfortable, like being secure. And at a fundamental level, that occurs because that's beneficial, because if you're uncomfortable about how close you are to snakes or where rocks fall, you move to a place where you're more likely to be alive and have children and all of this. But particularly in more developed society where, you know, the way one person puts it, there aren't lions in the street. So your concerns are larger, the kind of concerns that our minds didn't develop to deal with. I would say that you should call recovering from religion, because this is the kind of thing that they can help you with. And even if you call and you realize, oh, I didn't need this, then you know that you didn't need it. And so I would do everything that I could in the next however much time we stay on this call to encourage you, call recovering from religion.
Yeah, if you stay on the line, I'm sure the guys in
the
booth over there will pick up your call and help you get connected with some help on that.
Okay, so
religion.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So at the end of this call, I'm going to put you back on hold, and our call screener will get you some of that information. Claire, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I just wish you a lot of luck, and it sounds like that's a pretty hard place to be, and I do hope you call back in and let us know how you're doing.
Yeah. I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope you don't lose any spoons. It's probably not helpful, but because he said one of the things he worried about was what the consequence of losing a spoon on the floor would be. And that was the point at which I'm like, okay, but that doesn't, it's,
Well, I have that brain where I can go there. You lose the spoon on the floor. All right. There's the metal that went into making that spoon came out of the earth, and that's pretty hard on the earth, right? So that means if you can't find that spoon, you got to buy another spoon, and that means you're going to be hard on the earth a little bit more. You know, I can do that sort of spinny stuff if, you know, but
well, I was going to say, additionally, if you look for the spoon and don't find it, then that affects how much time you spend. We should not do this while he's still on the line.
Right. See, time can never be gotten back. And I actually, I get that, because when somebody comes to my door and I don't want to talk to them, I can be all sorts of polite, but that takes...
Well, here, let me put it this way. You spent a few extra minutes looking for the spoon. You either find it or you didn't. It made you 5 minutes later out the door, and then because of that and because you were going to drive, you didn't get T-boned by a truck, and you're still alive.
Yeah,
and can continue to help.
That's a everything happens for a reason thing. So yeah.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No. If you let your imagination run away with you, then Jesus can happen.
For me, one of the things that helps is to just make a very hard, conscious effort to do good things, as many as possible that are definitely easily big things, like dropping off clothing for Phil Session to give out tomorrow, or next week, is it, at the Atheist.
I didn't check the dates. Sorry, Phil.
Right. Phil, sorry. So he can give them to the homeless and so forth. You know, coming here and volunteering. You know, easy things.
Participating in your community, paying your motherfucking taxes, helping out your friends and family.
And at the good place, they're tallying all this up. Right? Right?
And in the show.
No.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Okay.
Yeah, the person keeping track of whether I'm doing a good job is me. And I'm a pretty, I am not a fair critic of myself.
We can be awfully hard on ourselves, and it sounds like he was being super hard on himself, and that's what is hard. Yeah.
So I think we'll go